Hey, 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 it's Tia, baby. And I am back with another video. So I'm going to read the rest of chapter 9 and half of chapter 10. So here we go. Jax turned out to be a really cool dog. Everybody in the neighborhood was scared of him, though, because he was weird. He had weird, bright blue eyes that almost looked like marbles and those black markings on his face. Our house was near an elementary school, and I remember one time being out in the yard when this kid came along and started banging on the fence, trying to tease the dog. I could see the kid's face in the cracks between the fence slants and his little hands up on the top of it. I knew what he was going to do before he did it. Jackson knew too. He sat and waited for the little boy to reach up, grab the top of the fence, and pull him up to see over it. Then Jax jumped straight up and popped the boy in the forehead with his nose so that the kid took off running. Only Pebbles, our Pomeranian, told Jax what to do. She remained the queen despite the fact that Jax was 3 times her size. Whenever we let her out in the yard, Pebbles would run up to Jax and tug on his ears with her teeth. She was a rowdy little thing. Our dog party didn't stop there. One day, Selena was outside cutting the grass. She loved doing that. When a woman walked by with 2 gigantic beasts, when I came home from running errands, I turned the corner and in the car and saw Selena standing there talking to the woman with these humongous dogs the size of ponies. What the hell are those? I muttered. The minute I parked in the driveway and got out of the car, Selena said, "Babe, come over here. Meet our neighbor Margie and her great dogs." One of the dogs, Max, was about the scariest looking creature I've ever seen. A brittle dog with a huge head and jaws that looked like they could crush a truck. As I approached Selena and Margie, that dog opened his mouth, looked right at me, and let out a bark from hell. I swear the ground shook when Selena walked him over to me. Selena started telling me about Max and the other dog, a female named Brandy, informing me that they were English bull mastiffs. She lectured me on the origin of the breed, what they were like as pets, and on, as though she hadn't just seen them for the first time herself. As she talked, I stared at her, thinking, "Oh no, do not even think what I know you're thinking, Selena. No way can we handle dogs like these." After a minute, I went inside to unload the groceries, making the mistake of leaving Selena out there with those dogs. Little did I know that Brandy was pregnant, much less that Selena would tell Margie that she wanted one of those puppies. Later, I found out that Margie tried to convince Selena to ask my permission to bring home a bull mastiff. But Selena had said, "Oh, don't worry about Chris. He'll come around." A few months later, she surprised me with a puppy, which was already half Selena's size, even though it was just a couple months old. I looked at Selena and said, "You bought it, didn't you?" She ignored my question. Chris, look how cute she is." "That dog is going to be bigger than you are." I warned, but I could feel myself weakening. The puppy was cute, and Selena's enthusiasm was as contagious as her laugh. Plus, it's always melted my heart to see her with baby animals, because it was so easy to imagine how it would be one day with children of our own. I had no doubt that Selena would be amazing at motherhood as she was at everything else. Selena set the dog down on the ground, and we both smiled like proud parents as we watched the puppy leap around. English bull mastiffs are such big dogs that their legs are kind of stiff, and they're extremely clumsy in their early months. It was like watching a cult in our yard. Now I was in love with this puppy too. I knew it would be an awesome dog. "Okay," I said, Let's keep her. We named the puppy Taylor. What I didn't know, how many times will I have to confess this, was that when Selena went to Margie's house, she not only bought Taylor, but another puppy too. She was afraid to tell me though, so she had Margie hold the other dog. She wanted me to break the news to you slowly, Margie told me. At the time, all Selena said to me was, "Gosh, I feel so bad for Margie. She can't find a home for that last puppy." Still clueless, I said, "Oh, I'm sure somebody will happen along who wants to buy a dog." Selena kept mentioning how much trouble Margie was having selling that last puppy. Though at the last though and at last some red flags went up. I knew Selena well enough to realize that she had probably already bought the damn thing. I came to grips with the idea pretty quickly. What was one more pet? But I didn't make it easy for Selena. In fact, I did whatever I could to make it harder. Whenever she brought up the subject of the last puppy, I just say, "Oh, that's too bad. It's difficult for Margie. I wish I can help her out, but we've already got 3 dogs and those misters grow up to be so big." Finally, one day, Selena just came out with the truth. "I did it. I bought the last puppy. It's ours, Chris." I grinned. "I already figured that out." She whacked my arm. "You did? You already knew and you just let me keep on talking and talking? You didn't say anything?" "Hey, a guy's gotta have his fun around here," I said. Selena went off and called Margie, who brought the last puppy over to our house. We named that dog Winnie. As Margie got out of the car with the dog, she said, "Please don't be mad at me, Chris." "Dude, I know how Selena is," I said. "She doesn't need any coaxing. She just loves animals that much." And it really was fine in the end. Selena and I both loved going out in the yard to wrestle with Winnie and Teller. They jumped and drew all over us. They loved to chase us too, always trying to trip us the way lions would trip their prey, by nipping at our heels. Sometimes I took Winnie and Taylor over to the schoolyard on weekends too, where I run with them in the wide open field, or Selena would walk them around the neighborhood and encourage the kids to come and pat them. Selena loved playing with all the neighborhood kids, but there was one particular she developed a special affection for, a young boy with a squeaky voice named Tim. Tim loved basketball more than anything in the world, and he was a big fan of Michael Jordan. One day, as we stood around in the yard playing with the dogs and joking with Tim, I feel like that name Tim is just it's a fiction name. I don't know why, but I just feel like it's a fiction name. Whatever. He announced with something like despair in his voice that he wanted a pair of basketball shoes called Air Jordans. "My mom's not going to buy them for me, though," he said with a sigh. "Why not?" Selena asked. "Too much money," Tim said. "And if I wait to save up for those sneakers, they're going to be sold out." "Tell you what," Selena said, "I'll go get the shoes. In exchange, you can help me wash the cars and do things around the yard for a few weeks. Deal?" She took him to buy the shoes, and you never saw a happier boy than Tim. You would think that 4 dogs would be enough for anyone, but one more was about to join our practice family. The band was playing in Houston, and after our sound check for the show, we all went over to the Galleria Mall. Selena and I went our way there and agreed to meet the band later. As we were walking around, we passed a pet store and stepped inside just to look, as Selena always said, a dangerous proposition coming from her. There we saw a little firecracker of a miniature Doberman. He was tiny but feisty, really trying to kill this little toy in his pen, shaking it back and forth in his mouth until Selena was laughing so hard that tears streamed down her face. "I just love him," she said. "Look at him, Chris." "Oh no," I said, but I was laughing too. "That is a pretty cool dog," I admitted. "If you want to look at him, let's go." "Oh, he is so gullible." I'm sorry, but she had him wrapped around his finger. Like, she can just say, ooh, I think it's cute. And he'll just go and buy it. Or he'll just let her buy it. It's like he just he was like putty in her hand. But in a good way. But I'm just saying it's just funny how she knew that she can get over him when it comes to getting stuff. But that's what happens when you're in love. But back to the story. And we went. Selena was wearing a long sheer dress with gauze underlayer that went all the way down to her ankles. We carried the puppy into the back room, and that little Doberman was flopping all around in Selena's arms because he was so excited. Finally, Selena sat him down on the floor, and the puppy started zipping around our legs. It didn't take him long before he was playfully nipping at her dress with his sharp little teeth, shaking it from side to side. Selena didn't care. She was cracking up. Look at him. He's crazy, she said. That dog was crazy too. Every time I put my hand down to pat him, he had to have his nose on my fingers. I think I'm in love, I said. Me too, Selena said. Let's get him. We bought the puppy and immediately decided to name him Andre, after Andre the Giant. As we were heading back to the bus, I suddenly remembered Dictator. Oh no, I said. What's your dad going to say about us bringing a puppy on board the bus? Don't worry, I'll tell him, Selena said. I fully expected Dictator to jump down my throat and say something along the lines of, Son, what's wrong with you? You already have all these dogs. Why do you need another one? But to my amazement, a Dictator was an even easier mark than Selena. As soon as she said, Hey, look what we got, he went nuts and started talking baby talk to our little dog. I handed Andre to Dictator, and you never saw a happier man. The puppy licked his face, and Dictator laughed. They were terrific dogs, and Selena and I were happy playing house and practicing our parenting skills on our furry pack. It was Selena's idea to get a dog, but it was my idea to own a pet snake. I had always wanted one. I told Selena one day. You want a what? She asked, incredulous. But why? You can't call a snake to come over and sit next to you, and I'll never lick your cheek or play with, and it'll never lick your cheek or play with you. I don't know, I admit it. I just think snakes are really cool. Selena was always a good sport as I started bringing books home about pet snakes, learning which ones were better than others and how to maintain them. She read the books right along with me and learned as well. Finally, we settled on a ball python because they rolled themselves into a ball if they were threatened instead of trying to bite. Another plus was that they didn't grow any bigger than 5 feet long. That's still big. We found a pet store that specialized in exotic pets. They stock all different kinds of snakes and lizards. I could tell by the way her eyes skittered around to every corner of the store that Selena was trying to pull off acting brave, but feeling jumpy inside. It's okay, I reminded her. They're all in a cage and an aquarium. When one of the clerks approached us, I told him that we were thinking about getting a snake. He and I started discussing pythons. To my amazement, Selena just stood next to me without saying a word, a rare occasion. I had already acquired a 40-gallon aquarium tank, a heated lamp, heated rocks, and everything else that we needed. When I told the clerk this, he went into the back room and returned with a ball python wrapped around his arm. As soon as Selena saw that, she was gone. She didn't just walk fast, she ran out the door, then turned around and stared at me from outside the store. Big-eyed, I started cracking up. It's okay, I said, and then she started laughing too. Come on, I encouraged her. She came back into the store slowly, keeping her eye on that python, which by now had wrapped itself around my arm. The clerk told me all about the snake and its feeding habits. It ate live mice. While Selena stepped a little closer, once she looked calmer, I said, Come on, check 'em out. I held the snake towards her on her arm. Selena put her arm out. The python went right over it and wrapped itself around her arm. She tensed for a minute, then relaxed again. She brought the snake home in a little sack, kind of like a pillowcase, and put it in our aquarium. Selena was nervous around the snake for a while, but after about a month had passed, she relaxed. Ball pythons are binge feeders. They'll eat, then go for long periods of time without being hungry again. A couple of weeks after buying the python, I decided that it had probably had enough time to adjust to its new environment. It was time to buy a mouse and try feeding it. I went out to the pet store and came home with a white mouse that had little brown spots on it. I had only bought a single mouse, not wanting to have one left over if the snake wasn't hungry enough to eat too. You want to watch the snake eat? I asked Selena. Yeah, I want to see it, she said, which sort of surprised me. I dropped the mouse into the snake's cage and we both watched. Nothing happened. Finally, we decided to leave the snake alone and turn out the lights. The next morning, the mouse was still alive. It was in the aquarium drinking the snake's water and having a grand time scampering around inside the 40-gallon tank, using the snake as a playground. We can't just leave that poor mouse in there feeling scared all the time that the snake will eat it, Selena said. Let's go back to the pet store and get him a little cage. She is like Dr. Doolittle. The next thing happened, of course, was that we started building a mouse habitat, attaching all of the plastic cages and tubes for the mouse to live in until we pretty much had a mouse mansion. Selena named him Bugsy because of his big eyes and talked to him all the time. I think that if Selena wasn't into fashion and if she wasn't a singer, I think if she was just living a normalized life, she probably would be a veterinarian because she loves animals. So I think she will probably either own her own farm or she will be a veterinarian. Back to the story. One night, Selena was getting ready to go out with Suzette. I was watching television while she showered and did her hair and makeup. I don't know why, but suddenly I decided that it must be time to try to feed the snake again. I got up and took the mouse out of its cage and dropped it in the snake's aquarium. Then nothing happened, so I turned off the light and left the room. A few minutes later, I decided to check on Bugsy again. I snapped the light on thinking I'd take the little mouse out the aquarium and return it to its cage. Instead, I found the snake chowing down its head and chowing down. Its head was up and just Bugsy's back feet and tail were sticking out of his mouth. I started tripping, knowing how upset Selena would be. Well, I said to the snake, shaking my head, you got him. He's all yours. I snapped off the light and shut the door again, hoping Selena wouldn't want to check on Bugsy before she left. All right, I'm ready to go, Selena said a few minutes later. I walked her to the door and kissed her goodbye. Love you. Have a great time. As soon as she was gone, I ran into the room with the aquarium and turned the light back on. Sure enough, the snake was done. He had a big ball going down his throat. Please hurry up and get rid of that, I told him. You only got a couple of hours before she gets back, dude. Selena went straight to bed that night, and I couldn't bring myself to tell her about Bugsy. Instead, I lied. In the morning, I said, hey, I think Bugsy got out of his cage. What? Really? She asked. Yeah, well, he's not in his cage anymore, I said. I just didn't have the heart to tell her. Selena grew increasingly comfortable having the python in the house and even watched me feed it mice from time to time. She had no trouble showing the snake to friends and telling them everything she knew about pythons. She acted like the queen of all snakes sometimes, even sticking her hand in the aquarium to touch the snake's muscle back like she had no problem at all with reptiles. One time, however, we went out on tour and came back to find the snake gone. Usually we get dropped off by the bus early in the morning after a show the night before. I wake Selena and she would just sit up, walk out of the bus and go straight to bed where she pull the covers up and go right back to sleep. Meanwhile, I would check the house, turning the lights on in each room to look around, make sure everything was okay. When I reached the room where we kept the snake, I realized that all was not as I left it. We always kept that door shut on the off chance the python escaped, but the door was wide open. Shoot, I said. I went straight to the aquarium. Sure enough, it was empty. I looked all over the snake. Finally, I went into the bedroom and said, "Hey, Selena." I shook her shoulder a little to wake her. "I'm going to tell you something, but don't freak out." "What?" she mumbled. "The snake isn't in the aquarium." She sat right up. "What?" I repeated it. I looked everywhere. Selena climbed out of bed and we started combing through the house. She was a little jumpy now because we didn't know where the snake might pop out from. Even though it was almost 4 feet long, I knew the python could fit in a pretty small hole. A few days went by. Finally, one morning, I went outside with the dogs when all of a sudden I heard Selena screaming my name hysterically. "Chris! Chris! Get in here!" I ran inside and found Selena standing on top of the bed, jumping up and down and yelling. We had a king-size bed mattress beneath. It were two box springs pushed together. "What the hell is going on?" I asked, panting. Then I saw it. The snake's head was poking out from between the two box springs. That poor python looked just as terrified as Selena, and I started laughing. "It's not funny," Selena said. "It's okay, I got him." I said, "You fine." Nothing I said could coax Selena off that bed. Finally, I separated the mattresses enough to reach in and pull the snake out, talking gently to it the whole time, knowing that the poor thing probably couldn't even hear me over my wife's screams. Finally, when Selena calmed down and the snake was safely stowed in its aquarium, I said, "I thought you weren't afraid of snakes, or was that all just a big talk?" "Shut up," she said. "You know how I am." "I do," I said, and I kissed her. Chapter 10, A Wild Ride with Selena. Now, this is my favorite chapter. Yeah. But I probably won't get to that part because it's it's a long chapter. So yeah, I probably won't get 61 pages in this chapter. So I probably will read a good 2 more pages or 3 more pages, and then I'll continue it the rest of it tomorrow. So tomorrow I'll just probably read chapter 10 only because it's such a long chapter, and then I'll read chapter 11 on Tuesday. The front door slammed so hard that the walls shook. I had been playing guitar trying to work something out. Now I looked up. "Selena," I called. She stormed into the house but walked right past me without saying a word. Her face dark with anger, her hair flying, muttering something I couldn't quite catch. "Selena?" I followed her into the bedroom, where I found her just sitting there, her hands balled into a fist, tears streaming down her face. "What is it? What's wrong?" "We have to move," she announced. "I don't want to be here anymore. I can't stay in this house." "Why not?" "It's my dad," Selena said miserably. "We need our own space, Chris. We need to be on our own, really on our own." She's like me in a way. When I get mad, I get mad. Like, I get really frustrated. I get like really irate, and I really need to work on that, but I get very emotional. And you know, and my son's father is the total opposite. He's like Chris. He's very tamed, very low key, very private, very mellow. And it's like I'm always rah rah rah. He's so, and it's like sometimes it'd be irritating because it's like when will you ever be irate? But I mean, I guess it's good to have that opposite because he kind of balance me out when I get emotional. So because he's so mellow, it works. It makes it calms me down. So I guess it's better to have someone that's kind of opposite from you, or opposite from you, especially if emotionally, because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. But let me get back to this. I knew what she meant. We had been living in the house next to Selena's parents for almost a year, and we often felt like we were being watched. I'm sure, because I'm sure he had a microscope and everything. Not a microscope, a telescope in his room, or in the back room or somewhere. Turn the light off and just looking through the telescope to see what they're doing. And I really hope that he ain't he do I hope he didn't have that and look in the mate and see if they, intimate. I mean, because I wouldn't put it past him if he did, because he's very obsessed with her. And I'm not saying it in a nasty way. I'm saying it in an overprotective way. He is very much obsessed with her. So I wouldn't put it past him if he watches everything they do in the house. And I don't. I feel Selena, because I wouldn't feel comfortable living next to my parents, knowing that my one of my parents is very overprotective. I feel like I can't be myself in my house. So I really understand. I really felt for her, because I'm sure they probably, you know, even felt like they had to sneak around their house because they just never felt like they were alone. And I don't know if they ever was intimate. I'm sure they were intimate in the house, but they probably had to do it, late at night when they know that dictator gotta be asleep. So, it's stuff like that. It's like, you gotta let the woman grow up. She's a grown woman. Come on, with a whole husband. But let me get back to it. The entire Quintanilla family was still living in the same modest Corpus Christi neighborhood. Dictator and Marcella in one house, ABCDFG with his wife and kids in another house, and Selena and me in the third. Where was Suzette though? I don't. Where was she live? I guess she was the smartest one. She was like, I ain't living over there. Now it looked like Selena had gotten into another argument with Dictator. Most likely it had been about the boutique that she wanted to open. Whenever Selena tried to discuss her desire to get into the fashion business, Dictator's standard response was to try to talk her out of it. What do you want to do that for? He said. That's a crazy idea. You're making plenty of money and you don't have enough time as it is, because you allow her not to have enough time. Why don't you just sit back and enjoy life? I could see Dictator's point. It was true that the band was making considerably more money now than we ever had before. Selena and I were comfortable financially. I earned a good salary as a guitarist under the umbrella of the Los Dinos. And Selena and her family were commanding more money than ever for live shows. While some people accused Dictator of controlling Selena and her money, that simply wasn't true. Sure. Whatever Selena and the band earned, Dictator would first take care of the payroll. Then the family split whatever was left in 4 equal parts. They divided the money from the Coca-Cola sponsorship as well, with the family splitting the first 3 payments in the third in a year 3 ways, and Selena keeping the fourth. That is controlling. This is what I explained in one of my videos. It said right here that they divided the money from the Coca-Cola sponsorship. Why were they splitting the money for the Coca-Cola sponsorship when Selena is the only one that has a sponsorship with Coca-Cola? So if she has a sponsorship with Coca-Cola, then she should get all the money that is contributed to it. And then if she decides that she wants to split it, then that's her decision. But why is it Dictator's decision to split her sponsorship money? That's controlling, and that's not fair. And then she gets the fourth. How? She's the headliner. Why is she getting the remainder while everybody else getting all the other stuff? No, she should get the most because she is the headliner, and then the rest goes to split to everyone else. I feel like that's only logical, but I mean, I could be wrong because I'm not a business. I'm not in business. That's not my forte. But just that right there, that little sentence right there, did not doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't sound right with me. But anybody that's in business and that has a knowledge in business, please explain in the comment section if that is fair in that what I just read. So let me read this last paragraph and then I'm going to close out this video. Opening fashion boutiques probably wouldn't add much to Selena's income, at least not at first. And getting this kind of business up and running would be extremely time consuming. On the other hand, living with Selena has shown me firsthand that she was an incredibly hard worker, and I knew how much she wanted to do this. Her family didn't fully grasp how badly Selena needed to do something just for herself. So I'm going to close it out, and I will get back with you with part 2 of chapter 10. Peace.